if we want to have fixed exchange system, and if you want to avoid a speculative attack, what should you do? What should you do? So you should run fixed exchange system using something called currency board. Currency board. What does that mean, currency board? In currency board, your domestic currency must be 100% backed US dollar. So it means even if all the money supply, total money supply of your economy shows up at central bank, you should have enough US dollar for that. Can you see that? So if total amount of money supply and the amount of US dollar don't match with the fixed exchange rate, E-bar, that doesn't work, okay? So currency board, you have to make sure that you have equivalent to 100%. So it means if 100% of money supply comes to your door to go out of buy US dollar, you should have US dollar, okay? For example, if your US dollar goes down, I'm talking about the size, I mean, the volume of central bank ownership of central US dollar goes down, you have to reduce your money supply. Can you see that? To maintain the exchange rate. So it means what? So it means, again, if 100%, worst scenario, is that right? If everyone in your economy shows up at the central bank doorstep, ask for US dollar, you have that. This is called currency board. Currency board, then you have what? You should have enough US dollar and to be ready to exchange for 100% of your money if they show up and ask for it. Okay? So this is called currency board. Sometimes it's called it's a dollarization of economy. So it means every currency of your country, domestic country, is convertible to dollar. Okay, convertible to dollar. Now, after currency board, some countries set aside their currency, domestic currency, altogether. So there are a few countries, like Ecuador is one of them, you can search. They generally use US dollar as their domestic currency, okay? So, of course, it may not look that great. For example, you remember this guy, Argentina president, new president, and you know that Argentina high inflation rate and depreciation of exchange rate. So and they want fixed exchange rate. And he established currency board. He established currency board. Can you see that? So made what? Domestic Argentinian, I guess it's called peso, I think, convertible to US dollar. Can you see that? So, of course, some countries go a little bit further, make it official dollarization using US dollar all together. Okay. Of course, many countries, as I said, there are just a handful of countries that did that. Majority of countries are not going to do that. However, if you don't do that, people may do the dollarization. You remember I told you my country today is very interesting. Starting a few years ago, if you have an apartment over there and you want to rent it out, so leases are written in terms of US dollar. Because domestic currency has high inflation and loses its value. So generally, officially, some sectors, like a rental industry, they already dollarized. So that's why government made US dollar leases illegal. But still they do it. They have two leases, one for government, one actual one in the US dollar. In fact, 2 days ago, I saw a YouTube clip. Luxurious restaurants in the capital. Menus are in terms of US dollar. I don't know what government is going to do with that. Because stability, okay? Again, you may have unofficial dollarization, okay? So, of course, official dollarization has two big problems. Number one is, you remember guys, we talked about seigniorage? What was seigniorage in early chapters? Seigniorage was government income, you remember? Printing money, okay? So instead of borrowing from people, so government can print money and just consume, okay? So you remember, inflation goes up and seigniorage is coming out of inflation tax. Is that right? Because people were holding domestic currency, lose value, lose purchase power. Who gets purchase power? Government, okay? So if people don't hold domestic currency, what happens? Seigniorage is gone because seigniorage is feeding on inflation tax on holding domestic currency, okay? So if people, the problem with dollarization is government loses seigniorage income, okay? And who gets the seigniorage? So if domestic people hold foreign, US dollar, US government gets seigniorage because they can print money, is that right? So, like back home in country, inflation rate is close to unofficial inflation rate, close to 100%. So people hold US dollar. But don't forget that US dollar today has something like 3-4% inflation. So it means by holding US dollar, still you are losing purchase power. Where does that purchase power go? US government collects that, okay? So that is one big problem with official dollarization, and also losing national pride. You don't have your own currency. Okay, guys, you're right. I told you, you cannot control everything at the same time. There is something called the impossible trinity. What is that? You see, guys, out of 3 things, you can choose 2 and control 2 out of 3. Okay? Independent monetary policy, you remember? Under fixed exchange rate, small open economy, perfect capital mobility. So monetary policies don't exist. Okay. Number 2, free flow capital. You remember? I assume perfect capital mobility. Okay. And the other one is fixed exchange rate. You can have only 2 out of 3. You cannot have all 3. Is that right? For example, in Canada, we have what? We have independent monetary policies, Central Bank of Canada, okay? And also what? We have a free flow of capital, perfect capital mobility in Canada. You can easily take in your money, okay? But you cannot have fixed exchange rate. That's why in Canada, in the US, in big countries, in Western countries, we have flexible exchange rate, okay? Or you can have fixed exchange rate and you can have free flow of capital. This is the model that we have, I introduced so far. Small open economy with perfect capital mobility. The most important, the most famous case of that is Hong Kong. It has fixed exchange rate, it has free capital flow, but they don't have monetary policy. Okay, so what I told you is more relevant for Hong Kong. Let's talk about China, because in the past, when I said China as managed, pegged, at the same time, China is imposing monetary policies. You may say, and people ask me in the past, so how come in news we hear that some Bank of China is applying monetary policies? Because of this. Can you see that? Something that most people are not familiar with this, is this one. China has fixed exchange rate, independent monetary policy, but the problem is, in China, you don't have free flow of capital. That's the issue. Can you see here? So, in case of try. You can, from theory point of view, you can choose 2 out of 3. You cannot have all 3. Okay, that was a few points. Now, let me develop a long-run model of open economies, okay? So I am going to, okay, let me write it here. So I let price vary. You remember that? So for short run, price was fixed. Now I assume that price is variable because I am moving towards long run. Okay? So I am going to develop aggregate demand curve. You remember how I got aggregate demand curve in chapter 11 and 12? So we combined IS and LM. So aggregate demand curve for open economy is still combination of IS and LM. But what? IS star and LM star. Okay? So I am going to combine these two. The same thing. The same thing. Only the shapes are kind of different. So now P is variable, but you remember I said in short run, nominal exchange rate, real exchange rate move together. Not anymore. Be careful. In long run, nominal exchange rate, real exchange rate are not moving in the same direction necessarily, because price is changing. And also, did you notice something? Because now nominal exchange rate, real exchange rate don't move together. Therefore, I go back to, you remember chapter 6? Net export, I proved that net export is a function of real exchange rate. So I am going back to my original model. Is that right? Okay. This is another reminder, I told you before, one more time. So in short run, central bank can control exchange rate, nominal exchange rate, and also real exchange rate, because these two move together, but not in long run. In long run, even under fixed exchange rate, when nominal exchange rate is fixed, real exchange rate can go anywhere. Why? Because price is variable, okay? So be very, very careful. Okay, I need to combine these two. I need to combine these two. You remember I did this in chapter 11, 12 for closed economies. Let's do that under open economies. Okay, you remember the graphical version? So this is my IS star curve. Okay. So you remember downward sloping, we talked about this in the beginning of this chapter. But LM, for LM, I cannot draw LM curve because now price is variable. So I need, you remember for LM curve, price was given. So I need a given price level. So I just, let me randomly choose a price level, P1, yeah? Okay, so when you have that price level, so LM curve, remember LM curve is vertical because M is fixed, P is fixed, or star is fixed. So there is only one Y that can bring money market to equilibrium. So there is that. So P1, Y1 is if price is P1. All right. So, but again, I chose P1 just randomly. Okay. So suppose price goes down. Price goes down. So what happens? See, price goes down. This is fixed. This is fixed. So left hand side goes up. Right hand side goes up. So it means output must be higher. Okay, here we go. So Y2 is corresponding to P2. Is that right? And then remember I asked you to go home and repeat this 10 times. Okay, but here 2 would be enough for me. I connect these two. So that is aggregate demand curve for open economies. Okay, so it means aggregate demand curve, remember, is all possible combinations of price and output that bring goods market and money market to equilibrium at the same time. All right, understand? Because you have intersection of IS and an M, star, everything is star. So from formula point of view, you see, because I am combining these two, I have everything here. Okay, so my aggregate demand curve is a function of too many things. So look at here, shifters. So I am going to, so Y, price. So these two are not shifters. Remember, P over there, Y here, but I have new shifters. See? So M, money supply, old-fashioned shifter, G, old-fashioned shifter, T, old-fashioned. Now real exchange rate is shifted for aggregate demand curve too. You see that? This is something new. Okay, so here I showed you how to develop aggregate demand curve graphically. But we always do this intuitively and algebraically. Algebraically, I leave it for your tutorials. So, intuitively, why aggregate demand curve is downward sloping? Remember shifters? So, don't touch monetary policies, fiscal policies. G fixed, T fixed, M bar fixed. Okay. Suppose price goes up. Price goes up, but don't forget that money supply is fixed. Money supply is fixed. So supply of real money shrinks, but people need liquidity. Okay. So how do people get liquidity? Because money supply is fixed. Central bank is not very helpful. So people start selling bonds. Remember that? Liquidify some of their assets. So bonds become cheaper. So domestic interest rate tends, it doesn't go above that, but tends to go above domestic foreign interest rate. So that is enough to induce capital inflow. Capital inflow means what? Demand for domestic assets and domestic currency rises. So that means nominal appreciation. Remember that? Nominal appreciation. But you remember, in short run, I told you what? Nominal appreciation, price is fixed, real appreciation. But here I cannot say that. Here I cannot say that. Why? Because price is variable itself. Can you see that? You don't have that luxury anymore in long run, okay? When price is variable. Okay, but here I have no problem. Why I have no problem? Look at here, you see? So here I have nominal appreciation, and don't forget that, I started myself by higher prices. So E goes up, domestic price goes up, foreign price, no story about that. So here, still I have real appreciation. I am lucky here, okay? Real appreciation. Real appreciation means net export goes down because domestic goods are more expensive, foreign goods are cheaper. So net export is part of land expenditure, inventories, output. You see that? So price goes up, output goes down. So that tells me aggregate demand curve in open economies still upward sloping. Still downward sloping. Still downward sloping. Okay. So I developed aggregate demand curve for open economies. Guys, this is my long run equilibrium now. Look at that. Aggregate demand curve. By the way, my S curve and M curve star. So aggregate demand curve. And also, please, guys, this is very helpful for final exam. I am back to, remember chapter 11 and 12. Short run aggregate supply curve is flat. Long run aggregate supply curve is vertical. Okay, so we are not going to use number offers this easy version for open economics. So no upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curve. Okay, the easy version. Okay, so guys, look at that. This is what? This is your long-run equilibrium. Long-run equilibrium. And also, I have written all the equations. Shift, you know, you can check, double check shifters. Okay, real exchange rate, nominal exchange rate, because now in long run price is variable, so you, E and epsilon don't move together necessarily. Okay, so you have to consider real exchange rate relation. Okay, this is your long run equilibrium. So we always start from this long run equilibrium to analyze what? Any shock, any policy. Okay, so let's just repeat our favorite policies. Okay, so suppose G goes up, and by the way, I am going to compare short run, sorry, I am going to compare fixed versus flexible. How fixed and flexible react to the same policies in short run versus in the long run. Okay, can you see that? So here we are comparing many things together. Okay, suppose expansionary fiscal policies, and now we have floating exchange rate. Floating exchange rate. Okay, so look at that. Actually, we have done this 1 billion times now, really. You see, G shifts IS to the right, and now it shifts also AD to the right. Can you see that? It's pretty much like close the economies. So IS shifts to the right, and AD shifts. Okay, guys, actually here, I don't know. I can draw dotted one here, but I told you, I mean, you, if final exam, you can ignore the dotted ones, okay? So, because you're going to see that AD doesn't shift eventually, okay? But imagine there is a dotted one, okay? So by increase in G alone, IS shifts to the right, AD also tends to shift to the right, okay? Then what happens? We talked about this, okay? They were short-term flexible. So we are going to have nominal real. Oh, by the way, did you see that? I am back to epsilon. So I didn't write E anymore, okay? So we have real depreciation, real appreciation. Can you see it here? It's very much, pretty much like what we did last time in this class. But look, when you have real appreciation, so aggregate demand curve, look at here. So that means what? Net export is going to go down, okay? But that is in form of a shift. Why? Because epsilon now is a shifter for aggregate demand curve, okay? So, you see, that's what I said. So you can, I don't know, you can put like a dotted one or just ignore it, it doesn't matter. So as you can see, AD eventually doesn't shift, okay? These two cancel each out. Exactly like what we did last time. Okay, but look at that. So point A is short-run equilibrium. But remember, we are using horizontal, vertical aggregate supply curves. So we are going to use, how do we go from short run to long run? You want that table prescription? If in short run, y is greater than y bar, so P goes up. If y is less than y bar in the short run, price goes down. Is that right? If y is equal to y bar, price doesn't change. Okay? But look at here. In short run, economy remains where? In short run, y remains at y bar. So it means there is no extra adjustment needed in the long run. Can you see that? So that's how you wrote Point A is the short run and long run equilibrium. There is no extra adjustment. Because remember I told you one of the good aspects of flexible exchange rate is it is automatically keeps economy at full employment when you are facing with shocks and policies. Look at that. You see, you never go to short run. Your economy always remains at, and look at that. I mean, policymakers are not, the policymakers are sleeping. They are not doing anything. Is that right? They are not doing anything. So, no short run, no confusion, no cost, and economy remains at full employment in the long run. Is it here? In the short run. No. Now, let's do the same thing fixed. You see, I just want to make sure you see these two next to each other. So that was increase in G floating, no short run, automatic stabilization. Okay? Let's look at the same thing, but fixed exchange rate. Fixed exchange rate. Be careful. In short run, when E bar is fixed, so epsilon is also fixed in short run. Is it here? Okay. So G goes up as usual. My S shifts to the right. So what else do I have? So we talked about this. This is fixed exchange rate. If my S shifts to the right and central bank doesn't do anything, what happens? Exchange rate doesn't stay at this point. Yeah? So it goes nominal and real appreciation in the short run. Okay? So we did this before, remember? In order to support this rate, what should central bank do? Anyone? If central bank wants to support this rate, so what should central bank do? This is what we have been doing so far. Is that right? Central bank has to defend this rate, E bar. Okay? So central bank has to increase money supply. Yes? So you know that. So this much. Central bank to support this rate. Otherwise, you go back to flexible. That's the difference between fixed and flexible. When central bank defend the rate, that's it here. So money supply goes up. Look at here. G goes up. M goes up. Together. Okay? So you see here. G goes up, M goes up. Together. So it means what? It means AD shifts up, shifts to the right, equivalent to these two. Okay, because both of them, we have done this in the past. G goes up, M goes up, each of them shifts AD to the right. Now, together. Okay, so AD shifts to the right. So, short run equilibrium. So A is short run equilibrium. Did you see what happened? On the fixed exchange rate, adjustment is not automatic. So economy goes to boom, a recession. Can you see that? That's the problem. Remember I told you, one of the most important advantage of flexible exchange rate is it keeps economy at full employment automatically. But here, no. Did you see that? So if it was a negative shock, so you go to recession. Under fixed exchange rate, you go to boom or recession because of shocks and policies. Did you see that? So you need what? Adjustment. Because in short run, Y is bigger than Y bar. So what happens? You have a prescription. In long run, price gradually start going where? Higher and higher. Is that right? Up to what point? Up to this point. So let me show you. So can I sit here? price goes up. So point, long run equilibrium point B. So did you see that? Price goes up. Price goes up, okay? So what happens is, see, price goes up. So an MGEB shifts back. It looks like, it feels like contractionary policy. Can you see that? So where is point B? Point B is over there. Over there. Long run equilibrium. Now, number one, as I said, under fixed exchange rate, stabilization is not automatic. So economy goes to boom or recession. Is that right? Number two, you see here, remember, this is what I warned you several times today and the last time. You see, nominal exchange rate is fixed. This is fixed exchange rate. Nominal exchange rate is fixed, but real exchange rate is changing. So you see here, epsilon, real exchange rate was fixed in short run, but in long run it went up. Fixed exchange rate doesn't mean fixed real exchange rate. That means fixed nominal exchange rate. But how nominal exchange rate remained the same, but real exchange rate went up? Okay, that is the element of price level. You see, remember, real exchange rate is this. So yes, exchange rate, nominal exchange rate remained the same, but price went up. Price went up, so you got real appreciation. So did you see that? So when prices are changing, policymakers cannot control real value. Policymakers can control only nominal values. So two major discovery about fixed exchange rate. Number one, that this is everything. Number one, stabilization is not automatic under fixed exchange rate. It's fixed under flexible exchange rate. That's the most attractive advantage of flexible exchange rate. Under fixed, no. Economy goes to recession or boom, either way, depending on the shock. And you know that. And price adjustment is needed. And price adjustment is always what? Is painful, long, bloody process. So you have to remember, adjustment in price is, so in a small open economy with perfect capital mobility, floating exchange regime, fiscal policies cause, you see, remember, let me compare them completely. So G went up, net export went down, okay, remember, these two cancel each out. By what? By right away real appreciation, okay? So output remains the same, price remains the same, so generally you never went to short run, okay? But look what happened in under fixed exchange system. Fixed exchange system, of course you have short run, G goes up, Y goes up, net export is fixed because fixed exchange rate in short run, nominal exchange rate is fixed, real exchange rate is fixed, price is fixed because short run. What happened in the long run? G went up, net export went down, real appreciation, price goes up, exchange rate goes up, output exchange rate is fixed, output is fixed. Now, look at this. This is everything, guys. Let's talk about long run versus long run. As you can see, long run versus long run, what happens is the same thing. G goes up, net export goes down, real appreciation. Understand? Fixed exchange rate is going to do the same thing for you in the long run. with one difference. So let me show you the exact difference. Are you ready for the difference? So when you put them in the table, it looks better. So you can compare them better. You see? So by the way, I am comparing long run versus long run. So what I am trying to do here is I am trying to tell you that fixed exchange rate is not going to provide you with something extra. The only thing here is you go to recession or boom, short run, which is not good. Okay, you see, output is the same, fixed, flexible, long run. So net export the same. Okay, real exchange rate is the same. What's the difference? The difference is this. You see? That's everything. This is very important from policy point of view. On the fixed exchange rate, because exchange rate is fixed, appreciation of exchange rate is happening by increasing prices. But the same thing is happening under floating exchange rate, even faster, okay, by keeping price fixed and adjusting exchange rate. Now, it may not look very big difference, but that is very important from policy making point of view. What is the difference? You see, price. Price is including 1 million prices. You remember that? On paper, price adjustment is very easy to tell. Is that right? But that means adjustment of thousands of prices. Okay? So you see here, on the fixed exchange rate, thousands of prices have to adjust. That's why you need a boom or recession. Okay? But the same thing is done by, don't forget that, exchange rate is just one number. Exchange rate is one number. Adjusting one number is much easier than adjusting thousands of prices. Okay, that's why adjusting one number on the floating exchange rate is happening overnight. You don't need short run, but adjusting 1 million prices, you need short run. Can you see that? So that is the biggest problem with fixed exchange rate, because under fixed exchange rate, adjustments are by adjusting prices. Adjusting prices, this is very important from policy point of view, is something very painful, very long, but adjusting exchange rate, one number is so easy. So you can take your iPhone and look at exchange rate between US and Canada. Exchange rate, is that right? It's every second it's adjusting so fast. It's just because it's just one number. So yeah, if you ask me, this is the most important difference between fixed and flexible. So for this one, you need recession or boom, but for this you don't need anything. So that's why there is no even short run over there. Okay, and finally, you remember under flexible exchange rate. Under flexible exchange rate, you have monetary policies that are very easy. We have done this before. You remember that? Devaluation is very new. Is that right? Let's see what happens to devaluation policy in long run. Remember, in short run, we saw that it's so beneficial. Remember, that is the essence of trade policy by China. But is this a good policy in the long run? And the outcome is very shocking. Okay, so you remember devaluation. Suppose my economy is in long run equilibrium, and central bank policymakers decide to apply a devaluation policy. So you can see that EBAR1, making domestic currency weaker artificially to make benefits of trade. You remember? We talked about this. Okay, so let's see what happens. By the way, did you notice this? In short run, epsilon and E move together. Okay, because EBAR went down, epsilon goes with it because price is fixed. So when you have devaluation, you are going to have real depreciation. You see that? Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's a new policy. But we talked about this 1 million times in the past. This policy is not going to materialize in life unless central bank supports this policy. You remember? You have to defend this rate. So how do you defend this rate? So, see, if central bank doesn't defend this rate, if you announce this new rate in national radio, okay, economy remains there. Okay, unless you do what? You get engaged. Okay, how? You need enough monetary policies to support this rate. You see that? Okay. So now look at here. You have combination of two impacts. You see, real exchange rate goes down. Don't forget that. M goes up. So these two help each other. You see, epsilon goes down but has negative impact. So goes down, negative impact, it tends to shift AD to the right, and also old-fashioned expansionary monetary policy. So these two help each other, shift AD to the right. How much right? This much. Okay, guys, for final exam, something that many students made mistake in previous exams. Sometimes students draw this graph, upper one, right, lower one, right, but they don't match each other. Make sure you don't make that mistake, okay? Because the graders are going to just, look at your paper using like a microscope or something, okay? So make sure your sheets are consistent, is that right? So that Y must match that Y, okay? So that would be short-run equilibrium. Remember, fixed exchange rate, shocks, policies send you to short run as opposed to flexible exchange rate. Okay, so in short-run equilibrium, but in short run, your economy is in boom. Okay, economy is in boom. So Y is greater than Y bar in short run. So you have prescription table. So it means in long run, price start going up. Okay, so it means, look at that, you remember that? Price keeps going up. Okay, so how far up? This far. Yes? Okay. But price goes up, so what happens to LM curve? So LM curve shifts back, is that right? So LM curve shifts back. So you go back to point O. And $1 million observation is here. Your system is still fixed exchange system. Devaluation, okay. In short run, E and epsilon went down together, but in long run, real exchange rate goes back to original level. But exchange rate, nominal exchange rate remains EBAR1, new exchange rate. So how can that happen? You see, this went down, price went up, so multiplication remained the same as before. Can you see it here? So E bar 1 times P1 is equal to E bar times P. Can you see it here? Nominal exchange rate went down, devaluation, but price went up, so real exchange rate remained the same. Each component is different, but multiplication the same. Can you see that? So in long run, real exchange rate, nominal exchange rates are moving possibly on different directions, like here. Can you see that? So this is very important. Okay, guys, this is shocking. Why this is shocking? Because why this is shocking? Okay, let me ask you guys. Yes.
Because the real exchange rate didn't change.
Yes, but what is the outcome of that? Real exchange rate didn't change. But when real exchange rate doesn't change, in long run, it means what? Output remains the same, yet, yes, the one that I am interested in. Real exchange rate is affecting what directly? Sorry? No. All of them are consequences, but your real exchange rate, when real exchange is changing, one thing is affected right away. Remember, there was something that was a function of real exchange rate. Net export, guys. You know why this is shocking? Because as you said, net export remains the same long run to long run. So it means net export is the same long run to long run. Of course, income output is the same. It says, I talked about so much about what China made China devaluation policy. But the problem is that policy is useless in long run. In long run, this is not useful. Okay, let me write it here. This policy has no trade impact in the long run. It just increases price level. This is the shocking one. So it means, so actually, have you ever asked yourself, I mean, this is what I asked myself, and I tried to do that back home in my country, okay, when I was working there, okay? I said, why more countries don't follow China? And by the way, China itself followed Japan. I never forget, when I was at your age, everything that is happening to China today was happening to Japan. I remember. For example, Japan was producing everything in the world. Okay, I remember my dad was looking for to buy a camera when I was your age. Okay, he came home without the camera. Okay, he was supposed to buy a camera. I said, well, where is the camera? I said, oh, I didn't buy a camera. I said, why? And he said, all cameras in the market were Japanese camera. So he was looking for an American, something that he used to see in his life, okay? So yeah, exactly what is China is doing. And Japan, before moving to almost flexible exchange rate today, they learned from Japanese. So Japan did exactly the same policy. For so many years, they did this devaluation policy, trade, producing everything in the world, okay? And then Japan became Japan. Okay, and then let exchange rate go flexible, and now everything is very regular. So I am sure China is going to do that too in the next few, years. Okay, because keeping fixed exchange rate is, remember, making domestic goods, domestic currency too weak means what? You are subsidizing foreigners' consumption. Is that right? Cheaper goods. Okay. They don't want to do that in the long run. So I am sure they are going to free exchange rate. Then they are satisfied with the level of economy that they want. So now, my question here is, how come Japan and China did this? Why not, for example, my country and so many other countries don't just do that? And that is, I think, the miracle of China and Japan shows up. You see? This policy is good only in short run. In long run, if you stick to this policy and you haven't done anything else, so the benefit just disappears. And you end up with what? Just inflation. So, what they did, Japan and China together, was technological progress. Technological progress. Because technological progress, we didn't discuss in your textbook. Remember I told you with supply side shocks, they are not discussed in your textbook. But you can tell, generally, technological progress is deflationary. Because what is better technology? Cheaper goods, is that right? So, you may ask, why we have technological progress continuously, but we don't have deflation? So the answer is because central bank makes sure we don't get deflation. So they increase money supply enough to cancel out technological progress. My point here is in China and Japan, they canceled out inflationary pressure of this policy by technological progress. So this is the part that most other countries cannot do that. So we tried that back home in my country, but we couldn't do that. Is that right? So what happened was we after a while, in long run, so benefits of trade goes away, and you end up with just inflation. Okay, but inflation over there, they continuously kept technological progress. So inflationary pressure of this, deflationary pressure of technological progress cancel each out. So they continuously get trade benefit and technological progress. Okay, that was what really these countries did, and that's why other countries cannot just copy that easily, because others, I don't know. That is a question I don't have easy answer for that. Other countries cannot easily transfer technology to their countries. Okay, so if I compare long run to long run, evaluation policy, so output the same, consumption the same, investment the same, G is the same, net export the same. So what's the difference? Your devaluation, real exchange rate is the same, price goes up. Did you see that? So devaluation policy, if you don't do anything else, in long run, is like, remember we talked about monetary policies. Money supply is neutral in the long run. It's the same thing. So the whole miracle is about what? About make sure you have a continuous technological progress. So you are always living in short run. Okay, this is essentially it. This is the part that other countries cannot simply follow easily. Otherwise, this policy is so obvious. Okay, actually we are done here. I am going to officially let you know the coverage, because I just wanted to make sure that we can finish this part for this section, because other section we finished this 2 weeks ago. Roughly speaking, we are going to start chapter 6 and after. So we set aside anything before chapter 6, okay? But again, no direct question, but still conceptually, okay, we use the same stuff. Is that right? We cannot conceptually disconnect them. But no direct question from those chapters. So I am going to post official coverage and also sample final exam. Okay, so we go from there. So guys, some of you asked me for notes, previous chapters. So if you need anything, just come here, and everybody else can go home. Okay, so anybody can come here for other